Welcome to another episode of Black Leaders Podcast. My name's Ladi.
And my name is Daya, and this is the one and only, one of the most legendary guests we've had to date. A creative, a master genius, mastermind, mind master, shapeshifter, ultimate collaborator, one of the dot connectors behind the scenes that has been bringing scenes together in New York, Nigeria, LA, globally, Africa, and one of my inspirations, someone I always look up to when I think about how can we bring this creative vision to the highest peak and to the highest mountain. This is the one and only Aday. Aday living the man.
Glad to be here. Thank you.
Welcome, man.
Thank you for the invitation.
Thank you.
So Aday, who is Aday?
Oh man, it's kind of like the name, Aday. Just a young, ambitious, thriving, first-gen Nigerian, born in America. Um, you know, I just stay true to myself. I think I stay true to my culture. I just love the idea of just doing and believing. That's who I am.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm a believer.
So, a believer, what does wealth look like to a believer?
I think I believe wealth is sharing, sharing in information, sharing in space. Wealth is anti-gatekeeping. I think wealth is conversation. I think the more you get to like speak with people or
Yeah.
like learn culture and like learn just different walks of life things that develops wealth. Like the more you receive is the stronger the wealth and the bandwidth at which like you are wealthy. Yeah, that's wealth to me.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit, more about like your journey, in terms of like how you gotten to where you are right now, right? He has Irie Sessions, right? And you've been doing that for some time, right? Like,
I think
so
we've been it's like year 8 now.
you're 8. Wow.
Yeah, June makes it 8 years.
Yeah, exactly. Right. That flies. So it's like,
Yeah.
and there's a lot that goes through that whole process and just that space, right?
Yeah.
In terms of creative direction. So I think like, that would, that's definitely like something we would really like to
Yeah.
understand,
I think for me like the journey, like my first intake into creativity, which would just be like my first love language into creativity, would be design. I think design has always been at core. Um, I think just navigating like building a brand, down to like designing a logo, which I do think like, if you look at the logo for, per se, is like one of the best logos. We think about it from a cultural brand or a hub. So I think like design was like the crucial element that brought, the full circle element towards like, the idea of Irie Sessions, the idea of like even who I am as a creator, as an artistic visionary, just designing, you know, the way of life, designing like ideas, designing relationships. Was more so curated.
And so it's curating, it's connecting, and I think wealth flows through connections.
Yeah.
Those networks.
Yeah.
Your network is your net worth.
Yeah.
Some people say. And in today's world, it is kind of hard to capture that in wealth. So, as a creative, so many people are listening to this and watching this and will watch this.
Yeah.
They're going to say, how do I become like Aday? Like, how do I use my creativity to become wealthy in the 21st century?
Yeah.
And so, can you guide us through how you approach that, how your journey, from a young, bull to, Aday now, like how you do that?
I think ultimately, it just boils down to like your passion, right? Like when you're passionate about something, like you go out and you try to find or do by any means, right? Like you want to, put yourself in positions to where like you're able to like grow or like scale, right? So like for someone like myself, like I don't think in the box. I think out the box. It's like the box is like culture, religion, it's everything that like circumcised you to this idea of life or how life should be. I think, okay, what if I was to do that? So like out the box is just like, what's the worst that could happen?
Yeah,
But you just have to lead with passion. I think passion and intention matters. So like for myself, I think I've been passionate about everything I do. A lot of people will say like he does a lot. Like he does photography, does creative direction. Oh, he curates parties. Oh, but then again, like, he pairs relationships. Like, oh, he match made these couples or he did, oh, he's able to like curate music,
music.
So it's like the future is just like based on like passion and just intent. Yeah.
Wow. So that passion, that intent, that's really what is leading you in this wealth journey you're on.
Yes.
And
100%.
how did that lead to you beginning Irie Sessions
Yeah.
and this collective that you're doing, and how did that lead to
Like where you're at now.
Yeah.
Right? Like what? Yeah.
Lust on the Coast?
Lust on the Coast. Yeah.
Wow. Be here.
Lust
Second
on the
EP.
Coast.
Lust on the Coast.
Yeah.
So Irie Session just really started through the idea of friendships, right? Just having this bandwidth of friendship within different spaces, right? If I was to bracket industry, music, fashion, art, tech, entertainment. So I just thought of an idea. What is one way to bring all these walk and backgrounds and people into one space? And they all identify with like something, whether it be me, whether it be a concept, whether it's music, which is music.
Yeah.
So, yeah, Irie Session started through the nightlife, series of parties that has now grown to like a series of music projects, which, this wasn't like planned. This wasn't in a script to begin with. The more conversations that happened, it started to bring about more collaborations, like me pitching ideas or me meeting this person. So yeah, that's the origin of Irie. And like now we're here, second EP, Lust on the Coast. 7 tracks. I don't even know what to say. Like it feels surreal, right? So I'm gonna tell y'all one thing. So my friend said, a really great friend of mine, his name is Mark. He said something amazing like 2 days ago. Not to go off track, but he was like, you at a level in your life where all you have to do is plant the seeds in the garden. And don't stress about watering the foundation in the garden. Sometimes you just gotta wait till it rains.
Yeah.
God is the rain.
Yeah.
God is the rain.
Yeah.
When I heard that, I was just like, we here. So Lust on the Coast. Lust on the Coast is here.
Nah, yeah, that's crazy, man. That like evolution is wild.
Yeah.
Like, I can just go from that, and like, you gotta do a lot of pivoting.
Yeah, a lot of pivoting.
Yeah.
And it's crazy because I'm looking at like just where we at now, and I say we because there's no me in this, right? It's like Noah built the ark with a group of people, right? It's just unfortunate that we don't really know the depth at which like those people's stories like further on, right? Because it was like this big character, whatever, right? Not to break analogy down, but I say that to say there's wealth in the community around the world that I've been able to curate with other people.
Yeah.
It's the conversations, it's the collaborations, it's the furthering thinking and gathering of information. So yeah, we here.
And when you say Noah's Ark, and just God, like I literally tweeted that like last week, like
It's crazy.
Noah had to make an ark. God provided the flood.
Yeah.
So your flood is coming, right? But it's already been raining and drizzling, and you've been able to create a collective to catch and capture that you started in 2017 with Irie Sessions, and now you've dropped your second EP, 7-song EP.
Yeah.
And you got these unique artists and these unique, as Aday said, superheroes on the boat with you, right? That you're building. So as you build that boat, how do our listeners are gonna say, yo, it's hard in this crabs in a barrel bucket mentality world we're filled in America. It's hard to really create a collaborative team that creates in a spirit of wealth and a spirit of energy. How do you create those teams? How do you maintain those teams? How do you get those teams to work together? And give me an example of that.
Yeah.
I'll be honest, it's not easy. I think as someone who, like, I have this thing where I micromanage a lot, and I'm very much a creative, even though I'm in this era where I need to, step into like that executive entrepreneurship side even more. As much as I've been invested into creative, I think it's just really like, once again, it's just the conversations, just having genuine conversations with other great thinkers. I believe like everyone I've been able to collaborate with are able to think at a level that they feel like this idea could be possible. When I look at that into like the idea around like Irie Sessions, for example, like everything is based on collaboration, right? The music project is collaborative. Like, me working as a creative director with these emerging artists or even established artists and producers, leveraging this idea of, you know, no platform is ever given onto you. We have to create it. So we create this world around a collaboration. It's like cross pollination, like some push here is gonna push there. So I think for me it's just like leading with your truth, right? It's just leading with your truth, speaking to, allowing people know your vision. And you always gotta start with a vision.
Yeah.
Like I have this saying, like, I can sell you a vision, but I can't sell you a dream. Like I can't sell a dream.
You can't. And so gotta be like now I'm like, okay, what's the creative process like for you then?
The creative process, I would say, it's really like research and development to begin with. Just like really like developing an idea around, what type of creatives, like, if it's like for me, it's really more spirit. Like my spirit rules me, like on this concept around like whether it be a track, whether it be a photo, it could be anything. So I think it's really just research and development for the most part for me.
What's the like partnership like process like for you? Like, like I mean, you to be able to go from 8 years, building this, it's like you gotta be able to build partnerships. And I mean you're also outside of this, you're very experienced in, making partnerships, to like, for funding, right? To keep your things going. Right. So I think that's really important that like people would like to know, like, and understand, because that's like a very, very nuanced thing in that field, right? And it's not easy. A lot of people are trying to do, like what you're doing, create their visions, and build it, but you need to have partnerships, you need to build those things. Like even with what you're doing right now, this EP, right? It's like, that's impressive. You're able to build a partnership where you're able to get distribution deals, right? So it's like, tell us a little bit about that, like how you go about that. What's your process?
I think
the deal maker.
I think that's super sick, right? So I don't rap, I don't sing, and I'm able to like secure a distribution deal for like this brand. I think the beauty about that, once again, is like, just research and development, which dials back to like what type of conversations you having, these ideas around partnership within music collaboration or partnership with event programming. Just start like with just like the immediate circle, right? Of just knowing like, hey, this is what I want to do, who's within reach, who can we talk to, reach out to. So I think once again, like it starts with like that immediate like core conversation within who I'm working with. The distribution, once again, for those that don't know, music distribution is just basically, a process where a company like help you market your music to like a wider bandwidth.
And what does that mean?
And what that means is like you get to like license your music to like this third party company to, you know, how push your music through like these channels, whether it be streaming, whether it be syncs, and just all these outlets of just furthering like the reach. You know, the beautiful thing about distribution and like the opportunity that comes with that is, you know, those that get distribution deals with funds, right? Like we were able to secure like a really decent distribution deal for like creative hub, you know, and not being that I'm an artist or, you know, but you know, being able to like you know, sustain or receive this like great amount to support like the project release. You know, where it's like, you know, a deal could be like whether it be for a year and just one project, or it could be just two projects. So I think what's been beautiful and what I've been able to help cultivate for the brand is, you know, focusing on this project we're releasing, Lost on the Coast. I do believe through this partnership, it supports the idea of just furthering the reach and the reach that benefits these artists. With parties, once again, you know, we think about the idea of like alcohol sponsorships. We think about the idea of sponsorship just through gifting, right? Like there's brands that we want to reach certain people, and you know they'll pay top dollars for. But imagine if, you know, they hit me like, yo, they, you know, like this type of person comes to your party, we want to give you X, Y, and Z gifting at a certain like, you know, rate or whatever.
Yeah.
So that supports like the events, and you know, I'm a strong believer in like investing in yourself. I invest in like everything that I do, like 110%, like very impulsive. So like it's like borderline Dame Dash meets like Einstein of just like, I'm just in the cave. Like I'll put my all in until I figure it out.
Bootstrapping.
Like fully putting it on you. Like it's like you, like when I think about you, it's like, okay, entrepreneur.
Yeah.
To the fullest, you know, someone, and they always say a lot of men after 40, you know, is when they really get into that business level, you know, right mindset, you know, and you're still relatively young, you know. And so with you starting Irie Global, creating these entities, what is the plan? You almost have a conglomerate of, you know, museums, merch, signs, pop-ups, clothes, music. Who gave you that inspiration? How did you even come to that? Because, you know, Diddy, Jay-Z, a lot of legends that you go to an Aday party, like, you know, it's really just legends only, you know, like, remember being in there, seeing Metro Boomin, all types of, and so, what inspired you to really create such a conglomeration? You know, and do you refer to it as that? You know, or is that just what it's becoming? You know, and like, you know, like what's the inspiration behind this?
Yeah.
I mean, most time I reference it, like I compare the idea of Irie Global to like the X-Men Academy, right? It's like this bigger spectrum of like a view around a narrative, these characters. That's the professor. I'm like the professor, and it's all moving parts, right? And within these moving parts, the main core inspiration is like women, right? The women in my life, the women that I collaborate with, women that, you know, that just do so much, and I always feel like it's 10 times the impact, right?
Yeah.
So I have this understanding that like women in any equation makes things 10 times better. Any equation.
Wow.
Like anything you do in life, you put a woman in it, it will just amplify. They have this natural nurturer in them, and I think about that backtracking to like the idea of my grandma. Like she built a house, 3 kids with her bare hands, no support, you know, and looking at that home, and I'm like, you know, building this brand, and like it's just like this correlation of like, wow, from, you know, brick by brick, you know. So inspiration just comes through, you know, like the women in my life, women that I collaborate with. Just a lot of amazing women that like I've been blessed to like work with, to like just further the narrative, and I want to work with just more, like, you know, I don't think there will be any man without women.
It's fact. That's a fact.
So That's the inspiration.
And as a black man in the creative space,
Yeah.
you know, a Nigerian man, how is it navigating the space as well? You know, it's, you know, you're in the trenches of Hollywood.
Yeah.
You're in London, you know, it can get real sticky, you know, with the Geno, you know, Just Another Night Out, the party series he was doing. So it's like, when it gets into those sticky environments as a black man, how do you stick to your principles of wealth?
Yeah.
And how do you continue to build this vision for the world that you had?
Yeah.
You know, on your, you know, foundations.
I think staying true to yourself is like just about knowing where you come from and understanding where you're going.
Mm-hmm.
Just keep reminding yourself of that essence. Like when things, you know, get as intense or like you feel like things is too much, you always think back to the core. So I think for me, that's what keeps me grounded. Like knowing that I'm a first gen African American, well, I'm Nigerian, born in America. You know, my parents came from like this village in Ekiti State in Nigeria. A lot of people don't even know where that's at. You know, and it's like
the remote stars that get
you feel me? And it's also like, you know, like I never had like help. I never had like OGs per se that were like mentors, right? I had OGs that I had to like, you know, prove myself to like just gain information. So I think for me, you know, just understanding who I am and just understanding where I'm going and understanding the future, which is like the kids, the next generation. You know, that's why I strongly believe like one of the ultimate goals from like all of this is like to build daycare centers back home, share that wealth even further. You know, like look how much greatness then came out of there. You know, look how our parents, like imagine the kids now, how they will maneuver the way our parents had maneuvered in their times. Like, what does that look like? There's technology. They need information. You know, and yeah.
No, that's real.
Wow.
That's real.
The daycare. I wasn't thinking about that, and it's like you're a teacher and an educator. You know, that's a big part of your wealth journey. And how, you know, do you feel that the people that taught you, like, you know, how do you feel that impacted you?
Yeah.
And what do you feel is maybe missing? You know, because I feel like, you know, there's a lack of education in the party scene, maybe.
Yeah.
That could potentially lead to a lack of connections, and that could potentially lead to decreased network.
You mean like what's missing now?
Yeah.
From like what you hear, how it was when you was doing, like, you know, how it was.
Okay. Yeah, within like curating, programming, and
curating, programming, parties, events, education.
I think now it's like it just depends, right? When we think about the idea of like events, right, and we think about times and era, we think about the demographics, like the Gen Zs, the millennials. Millennials are in the age where like, you know, majority of millennials, right, like I think they prefer calmer things, right? Whether it just be like things that allow them to connect versus like the spontaneous. There's still spontaneousness and like just newness, but I think what's happening now is like this idea of evolving, right? And evolution comes in like trial and error, right? So I think just even for me, like I think the formula I've had of doing events, it may not work today, right? Maybe I may need to find like a new approach to evaluate. To elevate, you know, this idea of programming or doing events. But shit, it's not hard doing parties and shit, man. Like it's really not hard like doing parties or like, excuse my French, or like doing in real life activations. I believe once again it's like the more conversations you have, the more you're able to like pull anchor. Like I have this formula of like ripple effect, right? The formula is called ripple effect. If I was to attract this person, who are the top 5 people within that world that pay attention to that person? I'm just very delusional to think they'll pay attention to that person that day. So collaboration for me is like unorthodox. It's like bringing this element here and this and that. It's just mixing all these ingredients and boom, everything still feel all right.
How many centerpieces do you feel like you need to have a banger?
5. I think it's 5. Like it's like 5 senses. You know, so when you think of like, you know, when you think of senses, you think about basketball. You need to start in 5. You know, like I think that keeps you protected going into the game.
What was your first like what was your first activation that like or like memorable activation for you, or like, you know, whether it's a event or something, like what was your first thing like where you were like, okay, yeah,
This is it.
like yeah.
Like on my own or
On your
part
own,
of?
or well both.
Okay. It was part of, there was this activation called Studio Inhibitions.
Okay.
And this was a while back. It was by the creative agency called 92 Dream Team, ran by like Naja Akman, Nakim, Quasi, like Superfly, like big homies of mine. And they had it at the Jane Hotel, which is crazy because I did the Jane Hotel like years later. And that was kind of like an ode to like what they did, right? Like they had like Maria Sharapova, Rocky, Ferg, I had Bizzle, I had Asa in there. Like that's, once again, that's this essence of like mixing these energies or worlds into the space to give off this bigger image. And we're all young then. Like this is like before like crazy hotness going on. And that activation, like, you know, is part of like the whole process, the 9 yards, like down to like getting tables booked and like homies. It was Fashion Week. It was like one of the biggest parties without any crazy brand attachment. It was just us, you know. So that was the core, and that's what inspired me around like, you know, doing a Jane Hotel again, which was in 2022. I think that was one of my most memorable. You guys were there.
Yeah, it was lit.
We had projects.
You got
you know, that was crazy. It was a movie. It was a great movie. And that one, I don't even know what happened. I just came back from Mexico. This was when we had dropped the first EP, and I was just like, yo, I want to do a gallery, like a 48-hour activation. I have this 48-hour law of like promotion.
Yeah.
And it's like, I always felt like nobody could do that.
Like, you're the first person I've seen where it's like, the day before, or like,
we're
doing the venue, and it's flooded.
I like that. That goes back to the spontaneity thing, like aspect, you know. It's like it keeps it feeling like fresh.
Yeah.
You know? Like I don't need to plan like 5 days.
Where did the network come from though? How did it get so wavy? How did it get such to this quality level?
I think it's like a spirit thing, right? Because once again, I had got that concept through working with like 92 Dream Team, right? When he did Studio Inhibitions, and I just thought it was so fly, like 48-hour notice. That means like if you know, then you know. You know, like if you know, you know. But if you know, then you must be there. And if you weren't there, hey, you missed out. Wait till the next month.
Yeah.
And I feel like that was ahead of its time.
Yeah.
You know, because
it's definitely started the foundation. I don't think there's ever been any other like, you know, African influenced or Caribbean influenced like activation like this. You know, like how we just even like curate, right? A guest list, an edgy guest list of like individuals from all walks. Like we're having supermodels, you know, we're having like beautiful women that do hair and makeup at a high level. We're having like dancers, we're having like, you know, and I'm talking about top dancers, like in this day and age within culture. I'm talking about, you know, music artists, producers, and creatives and fashion designers, you know, like in there. So it's kind of like, it's really like this academy, like hub and this space.
We have corporate.
Legit, we've had corporate, you know, we've had street, you know, whether it's like, you know, now he owns a dispensary where he was selling. You know, like, it's just like the wealth within like the bandwidth of just different people and bringing them into one space. I think we just did it at a very tasteful level. With Irie, we made it cool, you know, to say we are Africans, but are, you know, integrated in pop culture world of like, you know, the scene and whatnot. So yeah, I think we was definitely a part of this idea of Afrobeat feeling cool in America, you know, starting with New York as the Mecca. I think like, you know, was definitely very much a part of it within pop culture once again, I believe. But yeah.
And what about your first activation to like that you on your like that you felt like your solo
your first what about your first
solo
When I went solo,
First activation.
Yeah.
the first one and the jump. I mean, the first Irie ever was centered around my graduation. That was also like the extra boost. I think like throwing like activations is just finding like an emotional core anchor towards it for people to care,
Mhm.
right? And most times, if we really deep it, people care about getting drunk. So if they see open bar, that's that emotional, outlet for them to like say, "Oh, nah, this is going on."
Yeah.
Right? They come in and they put out everything.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I think for me, my first
That's
one would be it would just be Madam X. Yeah.
Madam X.
Madam X, yeah, we had it like upstairs. Had a little champagne room. It was hosted by Ronami Ogulu. She's an amazing creative director, Burner's sister.
yeah.
And it was also hosted by who else hosted that one? I can't remember who else hosted that one, but it was lit. It was
It's
really
fire.
lit.
It's fire. It's fire.
And that's
This one, like, OK Africa was like at its prime.
Yeah,
It was
yeah,
high.
yeah,
OK Africa, Adidas in there.
the OG leaders, the
Yeah.
OG leaders, like you said, the people that really opened it up for the current state of Afrobeats. How do you feel the new school is taking it? And as a Black leader, how do how can we continue to elevate it?
So far as like music and
Music culture, where you think the culture is going, like our culture.
Yeah.
Where do you think it's going? The people that, you were starting up the parties with, where do you think it's going now?
I think the culture right now is it's evolving, right? Like we gotta know like what the kids like, right? And I think for one standpoint is information, like hearing stories, hearing like, this type of stories and I just feel like right now, like everything is just like fast, right? Technology's moving fast. It's even like how people move and the scene is just like quick, but
Action on this.
I think for me, what's the future for all of this is like it's like this essence of like gatekeeping like not existent, right? Where we all just think in abundance, right? Like we all could say like, I see greatness in you. I'm here to like be an anchor. Cause like this open mentorship, like this open AI, we need open mentorships, to like further like what it is within
Bar. Explosion. Explosion.
Yeah.
To just like further like what it is we're all doing. Cause I think for me, it's bigger than life, right? It's bigger than just like, what seems cool or look cool. It's really about culture. It's really about telling the next first gen kid who's in high school and he thinks that it's impossible to like say like, yo, I'm gonna go live in Hollywood for 2 years and, become this Machiavellian documenting like rulers and kings, be among like the 1-3%.
Yeah.
Like not like I ever cared or like, gave too much into like that world, but it helps shapes your way of living and it helps this idea of like understanding how to navigate within your brand and navigate how to once again build wealth.
Yeah.
So that falls into like, network. So yeah.
Nah, yeah. That's the future, thinking about the future right now, like when you try and think like, 25 years from now, what do you think the future would look like when you see like all electric cars, vehicles, sounds? It's kind of very hard to imagine, and things are going very fast, when it comes to information, in terms of access. I think that one of the things we like to do too, like as we're kind of, getting towards the end, we just want to really make sure we are talking to the youth, right? And, what the question we like to think about or ask is like, if you were a kid or like, who's trying to do something or you're doing right now, I guess what advice would you give them? Or what, like, words of wisdom would you like to share in order to like,
Yeah. My advice to the younger version of self. And those of you guys that just have these crazy ideas and vision, it just starts with believing, right? Just believing. And I think it goes as deep into understanding that you're gonna die one day. You don't know when, but this idea and the thrill that you and excitement you have behind an idea, see it through. What's the worst that can happen? You fall, you get back up. We're all programmed to get back up. If I fall right now, I'm programmed to get back up. So you have a decision. And making a decision is just believing. That's where it starts. And then I feel like every day just having like routines to like brainwash yourself into, healthy habits of understanding like, it's a process. So yeah, just believe, believe, believe.
Believe. You have to believe. Believe it before you see it.
Yeah.
Believe it before you see it. That's that mindset.
Yeah.
I've been taking, and I think that's the key mindset to wealth.
Yeah.
You have to really believe before you see it and really visualize it.
And just being delusional. Like,
Yeah.
I'm so crazy delusional.
Yeah.
Like, I just think things in my head and just believe, like, it can happen. Or,
Yes.
like, believe, like,
Yes.
why not?
They call me and say, yo, I got this producer, you gotta drop this
You
video.
know?
Oh, you gotta go
It's
crazy.
like, why not?
Next, thousands of dollars generated. And that's all through belief.
And that's just belief.
That's pure belief. Thousands
All
of
the way
dollars.
through,
The whole way through.
Yeah.
And never giving up on that belief. It's like
You can pivot.
Yeah, you can pivot.
There's ways to, like,
Yeah.
once again, another understanding. I say rest if you must, but never quit.
Mm.
And that rest don't mean, like, you went down. You just, this where you at.
Yeah.
Took a rest, figuring it out,
Yeah.
but never quit.
But for some wealth leaders, they might say, hey, if I'm resting, I'm going down.
Right.
So some people might feel that.
Yeah.
What do you say to that? Like, do you say, like, you can hold that? Because, like, are you either going up or are you going down on that wealth journey?
But I think,
Or do you not see it like that? How do you see it?
no, because you can never go down in lessons, right? I think it's like the more lessons you learn and the more lessons you gain, it's like the better you're living and the better this, like, understanding about how you live.
Yeah.
So it's like
Everything.
that new level. So, like, once again, like, I was deep, like, life and spirituality and things where, like, I say spirituality, there's nothing ever constant, right? Like, you can't say I'm the holiest person, or a pastor can say I'm the most holiest. Spirituality is like grade. Like, you have to keep upgrading. You go through the first grade, second grade, third grade. So I think life in itself and belief, it's like grades. You have to go through this system. And it's like the more you feel comfortable in your belief and it doesn't feel too scary, that's when it's like up. That's when it's like, okay, it's in me. It's embedded. But you scared is like, okay, I don't really believe. I'm excited.
Yeah.
But excitement and fear don't mix.
Yeah, they don't mix.